Welcome to Faith in Recovery with Anthony Acampora.
Welcome to Banyan's Faith in Recovery radio show. I'm your host, Anthony Acampora. The Faith in Recovery radio show focuses on powerful personal testimonies, advice, and insight from families of those in addiction and suffering with mental health issues. We have guests who are experts in their field. I'm also the director and chaplain at Banyan Treatment Center's Faith in Recovery program. Faith in Recovery is a faith-based drug and alcohol treatment center. We're based in Pompano Beach, Florida, and we have locations nationally. The Faith in Recovery program is a non-denominational, Christ-centered program. The program is designed to allow clients to establish or restore their faith and relationship with God while addressing their addiction. If you or someone you know is in need of substance abuse treatment or alcohol treatment, contact us at 888-270-5712. 888-270-5712. We have a very special guest here today in studio. Really, truly blessed to work with this individual when he's in this neck of the woods, and you know, he's spoken to our clients on many occasions, and it's been so impactful. You know, when you go speak somewhere, you know, maybe a couple people come up to you and things, but when you're there, and I'm actually there after he leaves, it's amazing the impact that he has on people's lives, and it's absolutely incredible. So he has such a powerful testimony. He's an authentic guy. You know, that's really what comes across. He's transparent. It's from the heart. Right? We talk about that all the time on this show. God's looking for that, right? He wants us to seek him with all of our heart. And this guy is just an amazing guy. He has an incredible heart and an incredible testimony. He is a New York Times best-selling author, addiction memoir, Dreamseller. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. Amazing book there. He was an MTV celebrity. He's an alumnus of the Jackass motion picture series. I wasn't sure if I could say that on here on this station, but I figured I'd go with it. But that was a lot of people are so familiar with that. I remember I used to watch those, and it's hilarious. Former professional skateboarder, and he now travels the country for Banyan Treatment Center as an addiction and recovery public speaker. Wow, what a blessing to be able to just go out there and just share your story, share your testimony. All the tests that we go through in life become our testimony, and he's had many of them. We're going to talk about those. So I want to welcome, a warm welcome here for the Faith in Recovery show, Brandon Novak. There he
Hey,
is.
how are you, Anthony? Thank you for having me, man.
Welcome,
It's
man.
truly an honor and privilege to be here.
This is so awesome. I'm excited about this. You know, we were talking about having Brandon on, and it never really worked out, and I just texted him, what was it, last night or the night before?
The night before. It was funny because you texted me and I was coming here.
Yeah.
And I thought, he must know that I'm coming, so he's
You know what?
trying to get me.
No, I
And then
didn't.
when I called you, and I was like, I'll be here. You're like, oh, you're going to be in town.
Yeah.
And the first thing that came to my mind was one big case of being divinely convenienced.
Absolutely. There you go. There you go. Yeah, I had no idea. I was just kind of throwing it out there and figuring I would be calling him if he, you know, because he's not always in this area. He's all over the place. I heard you speak at an event a couple of weeks ago, man, at FAU. That was
Yeah,
powerful.
the Sud Talks, me
Sud
and
Talks.
Royce the 5'9",
Yes.
and a
That
handful of
was-
other people.
They should have probably had you on first, because I thought, I'm not just saying this because, you know, I know you, but it was absolutely incredible. Very,
you.
very powerful. And so we're going to get right to it. We're going to have Brandon share a little about his story and his testimony, and tell us a little bit about your story, Brandon.
You know, there isn't much that I haven't seen, tried, or did in order to get clean, right? And the honest answer is recovery, a 12-step program, was the last house on the block. And I didn't even want to go to that house, but at the end of my run, I had nowhere else to go, and no one was accepting of me except those people, right? People in recovery. But I am the alcoholic that could not get better unless I had a spiritual experience, right? I could not do this on my own. If I could do it on my own, I would not be here doing this interview with you right now.
Right.
I'm not I moved to Paris, I moved to London, I moved to Finland, I've moved all over the United States, I've changed women, I changed careers, I changed homes. On the external, I changed it. Thought that, like, if I just drank instead of smoked weed, or if I just sniffed heroin as opposed to shoot it, or only sniff cocaine as opposed to smoke it, you know, I could monitor or kind of guide my usage. I'm an IV heroin and cocaine user for 21 years straight. I drank, smoked, sniffed, and ate for a total of 25 years. In between those 25 years, I took 1 year off, and that was only because I was in prison. So that was by force, not by choice. And I'm not powerful enough for me to rid the obsession or lift the desire to drink or drug. I don't have that power.
Right.
You know, so that kind of is what brought me here. At the end of my run, I was horrible at suicide. I kept waking up. I was the kind of alcoholic that wanted to kill myself on a daily basis, but I didn't want to hurt myself in the process. And I was so low, the curb looked like a skyscraper. So I saw that it was working for everyone else. And at 35 years old, I was a homeless heroin addict on the streets of Baltimore City, selling my body for $40 to anybody that would buy, literally doing anything it took to get the next bag. And I realized the common denominator in my problems are me. Right? The drugs and the alcohol, they fueled the fire to get me to a 12-step program, but the reality is that's not my problem. That's not my issue. That's what got me here.
Right.
But my problem is my thinking, my attitude, my behavior.
Right. That's so well said and so well laid out, because if you don't get to the point, one of the things when you were talking, what I'm thinking of is, because I relate to a lot of your story. I was reading up on you and watching your videos and things. And, you know, just going from a certain place, a status, you know, I was a director of corporate security, I thought I had it made, I had all this money and stock options and everything, and then the next thing you know, just gone, everything gone. And you reach this low, horrible, low, dark place and low point. But then you come back, you know, and that's what you're doing now, which is so powerful and awesome to see, because the question I get asked as a chaplain at Banyan Treatment Center in the faith program, why does God allow suffering? Why would he allow all this stuff to happen? And it's a good question. But when you look at stories like this and testimonies and people that go through, I mean, it's unbelievable some of the stuff that you went through. I was reading about it, like I said, and then overcome that and start to have victories in your life. And God is going to use that pain and suffering exactly how he's doing it with you now, with all the people, not just at Banyan, but everyone that's listening to you or going to your speaking engagements. And now it makes sense, right?
Yeah, allow me to explain this before anyone persecutes me for what I'm about to say. But I believe God is everything or he's nothing. So, now mind you, allow me to explain this. I believe God is heroin. I believe God is alcohol. I believe God is crack. Because without those substances, I would not be the man that I am today, which is a man of God. And the reality is, for a 25-year consistent drug addict and alcoholic, who at the end of the day, my mother bought me a plot. People had taken life insurance policies out on me. I was on life support for 7 days. My mother had exhausted all opportunities, options, and resources. She had drained several bank accounts. She had sold 4 homes to financially pay for me to go to treatment. She had nothing left to give, and she went to church, and Father Mike saw her crying in the pew. Father Mike said, "Miss Pat, what's wrong?" Miss Pat, my mother, said, "Father Mike, it's Brandon. He's never been worse." He said, "I'm sorry to hear that." She said, "I've went to God with one prayer." Father Mike said, "Oh yeah, Miss Pat, what's the prayer?" She said, "Father Mike, it's simple. The prayer consists of, God, please cure him, kill him, or kill me. I can't take it anymore." And Father Mike looked at my mother, and for the first time in his life, he said, "How dare you?" He hollered at her.
Wow.
"How dare you talk to God like that about your son? God has a plan for your son. I don't know what it is, you don't know what it is, and Brandon doesn't know what it is." And thank God I didn't know what it was, because I would have gotten in the way of it. I would have messed it up.
Yeah.
So here's the reality. My defects, such as heroin, crack, wine, cocaine, pills, my defects have become my biggest assets today. And this is why 99% of the people that call me, the conversation goes like this: "Novak, if you can get clean, there's no reason why I can't. Can you help me?" My story is one of substance. It's tangible. You can read it in books. You can see it in the tabloids. You can type my name in on the internet. You see the footage of this. It's a little different than a 50-year-old professor reading up a textbook, giving a bunch of theories or hypotheses of what may or may not happen.
Right.
So what happens is it turns into attraction rather than promotion. I don't have to say, hey, go to treatment, go to treatment. Everyone knows that treatment's a necessity if you're in that position, but no one really wants to go. But now they say, whoa, this is that guy that was supposed to die with a needle in his arm. He overcame that. If he can do it, there's no reason why I can't do it.
Yeah.
So therefore, I believe that's all God.
Absolutely. But we get this all the time in the Faith and Recovery program. When they first hear about the Bible or a Christian program or anything like that, they usually run the other way. And then about like 3 or 4 days later, a week later, they start to come up to the program. And one of the biggest draws is, and the thing that really draws them up there is, the difference that they notice in the existing clients that we have.
Yes.
So like, I've known this guy for years. He was horrendous. You know, he seems like he has more peace now. He's calmer. He's nicer. And that's really God transforming somebody's heart from the inside out. We can't do that. He does it. And that's like with you. It was so much out there. There's so much publicity of it with you all over the place. And now that's being used, because it's not like some guy that just goes up there and says, yeah, I went through a lot of stuff, and people are like, really, did he? You know, nobody believes it. Yeah. This is so, like I said from the beginning, authentic. It's real. You're genuine, and you're transparent.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah, there's nothing that's off the table when it comes to me.
Because if we go through all these tests and all this pain and all this suffering, if we don't share it, because I didn't really start sharing my full testimony until I spoke at Faith Farm about 2 years ago. And that's really, before that, it was so much pain and everything about that, I didn't even want to talk about it. But I started thinking, like, you know, if God wants to use all of this to help other people, use my pain and suffering, if I'm not sharing it, what good is it, right? And that's why the transparency is so important. And it's not easy to go up in front of people and share the stuff, you know, that you've gone through. But that's what's so genuine about it.
And the thing with me is you're right, it's not easy, but you know what, in hindsight, it's really easy. Anything's much easier for me now than it was then.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd much prefer to, you know, you hear people say, oh, let's do a four-step's terrifying. Nothing's more terrifying than going back to where I came from. Right. And what that looks like is waking up every day using against my will. I don't want to do it. Right. God knows I don't want to do it, but I don't know how to not do it. It's a necessity. It's a lifeline for me. And I don't know how to not do it. And the reality is anything between me and that next bag, bottle, or pill must and will go, and it's not personal, it's just business. You know, and that, you know, I'm not scared of death. A junkie like me is not scared of death. Like, that was actually welcome for me, because then the fight was over. What scared me in the sobriety was, like, continuing to wake up every morning, doing things that I did not want to do for another $10.
Absolutely. You know, when you're on the mountaintop and everything is great, and and then all of a sudden everything is gone, and you're in active addiction, and you're going through all this pain and depression, and you're in such a dark place, you're comparing it to where you were when things were good. Right? Then when you go into that dark place and you're in the valley, right,
Sure.
and you're in the pit, you know, and you're in such a horrible place and just horrendous, you develop gratitude. You start to cultivate gratitude, because now you're comparing to, well, it could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
No matter what, because that was like hell on earth. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, gratitude. Which when you say that, I think of gift of the gift of desperation.
Yeah.
Right. Which is God. Gift of desperation.
Yeah.
So when I was so low that, like, I felt like I couldn't get any lower. It was just, that's when, what happened was I was demoralized in just such a fashion from drugs and alcohol. I was beaten into a state of reasonableness that finally I had that gift of desperation, and that's when God showed up. And he showed up, why? He'd always been there, but he showed up that day, and it was very visible for me to see it, because I was ready to hear what he had to say.
Yes, yes, you know? He's speaking to us all the time. Are we listening?
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's it.
I used to use God for most of my life, about 30-something years, as a spare tire. There's an emergency, okay, I gotta get that tire. But now he really should be like a steering wheel, you know? And you hear these, you know, you see these bumper stickers, God is my co-pilot. Nothing could be further from the truth. God's the pilot. We're in the passenger seat, or we're in the back seat somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, let him take control. Give him the steering wheel. You know, Jesus, take the wheel. You know that song, Carrie Underwood, I think. We're going to have to take a quick break. We're going to be right back in 30 seconds. Banyan's Faith and Recovery program. We have Brandon Novak. We'll be right back.
Are you struggling with addiction or mental health disorders, Banyan Treatment Center's Faith and Recovery program helps people at the depths of their despair, spreading the word that recovery is possible through the power of Christ.
Cry out to him. Where are you, God? Where are you? I don't feel you. Where's your presence? Why are you allowing this to happen? He already knows our thoughts anyway. We might as well just put it out there.
Program Director Anthony Acampora will help you discover how God can turn your mess into your message. Call Banyan Treatment Center for help now. 888-230-3122. Again, that's 888-230-3122.
Welcome back to Banyan's Faith and Recovery radio show. I'm your host, Anthony Acampora. We have a special guest on today. We have a really good conversation going with Brandon Novak. What a blessing to have him on. He's in studio here.
Yeah.
And we're talking about addiction. We're talking about all kinds of stuff here that has to do with that. And, you know, there is hope. There is hope. And, you know, Brandon is doing amazing things right now, and he's helping so many people out there. So, Brandon, let's get back to it. Let me ask you this question. What was it that motivated you to finally change?
You know, I think, okay, here's the reality of what the cornerstone of my change came from. Was I was a 35-year-old heroin addict. I had been a former professional skateboarder, first skateboarder ever to be endorsed by Gatorade, traveling the world with Tony Hawk, designing my pro model at 15. Then I end up in movies that break box office records, Jackass, TV shows, Viva La Bam, you name it, I'm doing it. And then I become a New York Times selling author who's written a book on addiction. In theory and on paper, a very successful individual who did things in life that people equate to success or happiness, and that some dream of doing. On the flip side of that coin, I'm a 35-year-old homeless heroin addict. I've been in 12 treatment centers. I just got off life support. Mother bought me a plot. People took life insurance policies out on me. Medevac to 4 different hospitals in 4 different states with 4 different overdoses. And my mother's praying for my death at this point. And what happened was all that was okay. It was all well, because every time I put a shot of heroin in my arm, the delusional effect was produced, which would allow me to escape the reality which I had created for myself. So I was okay with letting men buy my body. I was okay with sleeping in abandoned houses Christmas Eve. I was okay with my mother buying me a plot. I do a shot of heroin, I escape the reality. But what do I do at 35 years old when I cannot shoot up enough heroin and cocaine? I physically could not load the needle up anymore, and that delusional effect was no longer produced, meaning I could not escape the reality that I created for myself. Therefore, ignorance wasn't bliss. What do I do? My thing that always answers no longer answers. It stopped working. It stopped working. And at that point, I knew there was a way up and out of my position, provided I get out of my way. And my very best thinking had got me here. Despite New York Times seller, movie star, skateboarder, all that did not matter. My very best thinking has me living in my mother's house. My worldly possessions consist of 8 scarves, 2 jackets, 3 socks, 1 stick of deodorant that fits into a bag that doubles as my pillow, and I'm about to walk into my 13th treatment center.
Wow. I was watching one of your videos. I was just going through them last night. There's so many on YouTube and things, and at one point, one of the guys said they were done with you, you know, and they were kicking you out, and they grabbed like a bag and just like threw it on you or something, and to throw your stuff in, and they realized there was no stuff to throw in there. You didn't have anything.
I had nothing.
Yeah,
I had nothing.
It's amazing.
You know, and what I always tried to do my whole life is bringing us back to the, you know, I'm not religious, but I'm very spiritual, and I don't take credit for any of this. I give it to my higher power, because I've seen me take credit for this, and that takes me back to me being powerful enough to do this on my own. Then I'll start believing that I don't need a 12-step program or people in recovery or treatment, and then I forget where I come from and I return back to it. Because I have selective memory when it plays in favor of my addiction or alcoholism. Meaning that I can tell you about 4 years back when I walked in the Ram's Head pub and I had 2 glasses of wine and I was home in bed by 9 p.m. I can tell you like it just happened. I can tell you what stool I sat on, what music they played, and the barkeeps didn't serve me. Because that plays in favor of my alcoholism. I successfully drank for one night. My mind blocks out, you know, my mother buying me a plot, going to get, because that doesn't play in favor of my addiction.
Right.
So, yeah, I forget where I was at.
Amazing. No, that's awesome. You know, it's just, this is so useful and helpful, because a lot of our listeners are either in active addiction, or a lot of times it's the families that are listening. And this kind of gives you such insight inside the mind of addiction is really what you're.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so powerful. Like you said, you could have like outlines and everything and PowerPoints and saying this and that, and this is real. You dealt with this. One of the things I want to touch on that I think is important, because a lot of times people look at addicts and people in addiction, and you have a stigma, and they think of a certain way of them.
Mm-hmm.
And your family, you did not come from a bad family at all. Tell us a little about your mom's profession and your family, because it's amazing. Right?
My mother is a nuclear physicist on the board of Mercy Hospital, 53 years of gainful employment, second longest employer in Mercy Hospital history. My brother's an attorney in the White House. He practices pensions and benefits. My dad died as a direct result of the disease of addiction, smoking crack cocaine. I lived with that after school special. I excelled at everything that I did because I was not going to become my father, and I was definitely not going to do drugs and alcohol because I saw what it made him do to me, my mother, my brother, my sister. Sure. But the reality is, the disease of addiction does not discriminate. From Yale or jail, the White House or the outhouse, the results are all the same, and 1 out of 5 people will be affected. Today in the nation, 174 people will die as a direct result of an opioid overdose. That's worse than Vietnam.
Yes.
And the sad thing is these deaths are all preventable.
Yes.
They're all preventable.
Absolutely. It's amazing. Like I said, this is such good insight. Brandon works with us. We're blessed to have him at Banyan Treatment Center. If you are a family member that's listening right now and you kind of been going through this for a long time, you don't know what to do, give us a call at Banyan Treatment Center, 888-270-5712, 888-270-5712, or reach out to us at banyantreatmentcenter.com or faithandrecovery.com. That's our faith-based program within Banyan. This is just amazing. What you were just talking about, like I said, you have a stigma with this. It's kind of like mental illness.
Yeah.
You hear that, and it's like a loaded word, and same thing with heroin, another thing like that. So it's to break through that stigma. Like, what advice would you give to the families out there that are embarrassed and ashamed? And maybe your family played into this because they are so successful. I don't know if that did or not, or if that was like, well, I feel like I'm the black sheep, I might as well just keep doing this,
No, I believe I was genetically predisposed to it from my father, but that's my own opinion. I don't know. Right. Where we're at right now with this is we're at the harm reduction stage, right? I travel all around the world, and they say, what's the answer? What's the answer? And if I had the answer, I'd bottle it up, I'd sell it, I'd be a billionaire 1 billion times over. There is no answer. Right now, it's harm reduction and trial and error and process of elimination. So just do something. And the reality is it's so unfortunate to say, the stigma is being lifted because of this pandemic we're in. People can no longer live in the dark because the junkie's not the guy under the bridge with a brown paper bag and a needle hanging out of his arm shaking his cup for change. Yeah. I just helped a guy get into treatment last week that works for NASA. Wow. He works for NASA. Yeah. I had another guy, a few months ago who flew in on his father's private jet. Right. You know what I mean? Like, this is a 19-year-old kid whose father's an oil tycoon billionaire. It's just, this thing knows no boundaries. Yeah. It doesn't matter about your age, your race, your creed, religion, lack of religion. It does not care.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. It's so true. I mean, we have so many people that are getting injuries, from legitimate injuries. They get a prescription, they get addicted to it. It's so powerful. Next thing you know, they're doing heroin. And that's really the difference from maybe 20, 30 years ago with this. We're going to need to wrap up here. Brandon, I thank you so much for being on here.
Thank you. And I'm going to take it one step further. If anybody wants to reach out, I work with Banyan as well. You can reach me personally at 610-635-9092. Me or one of our team members at Banyan will take your call. It's my phone, but it rings like crazy, and I miss some calls sometimes, but it's my number. Call.
Yes, beautiful, beautiful. And hopefully this helped with the stigma, because of just your transparency and everything, and maybe there's somebody out there listening that's like, I don't want to tell anybody about this.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing with addiction. It stays secret. It's in the dark, and that's the worst thing you could do. It's not going to get better.
It spreads. It's like a disease. It's a disease. It is a disease. And here's the reality. The disease of addiction is not a death sentence. Your history does not have to dictate your future. As long as you're breathing, it's never too late.
Absolutely. Well said. Thank you so much,
Thank
Brendan
you.
Novak.
Yes.
He's with Banyan Treatment Center.
Best treatment center in the world.
Amazing place, just incredible people, incredible ownership, leadership. It's amazing. I am so blessed to be able to be there and work with guys like this. I'm Anthony Acampora. Join us every Saturday or Sunday, 1:30 p.m. on The Word, 94.9 FM or AM 950, or at 9:30 on Sundays on 970 AM FaithTalk Atlanta. Thank you for joining us. Psalm 147:3, He heals the brokenhearted and He binds up their wounds. God bless you and your family.
God bless.
God bless.